Dylan and I did the college tour thing last weekend. East Coast schools.
How much financial damage are we talking?
$60,000 a year. Before room and board?
Sweet mother of God.
That was my exact reaction. But here's what bothered me more than the cost. The entire tour, Dylan's on his phone, filming, just constantly filming.
Filming what?
The sidewalk, mostly. I'm pointing out the library, the history department, trying to create this meaningful father-son moment, and he's documenting the pavement for his 18 TikTok followers.
At least he has followers. Ronald posts into the void.
Is Ronald still looking for work?
Ronald is still exploring his options, which is what we call unemployment when you have a theatre arts degree. Very useful in the modern economy.
How's Valerie handling that?
Valerie is more patient than I am. She keeps saying he's finding himself. I keep saying he needs to find a paycheck. But look, I get the Dylan thing. Jackson does the same. Everything has to be documented. Everything posted.
And they're going to remember none of it.
They'll remember we were annoying. That's our legacy. Annoying dads who care too much about things they don't care about.
Speaking of memory, how's your dad?
Not great. Visited 2 weeks ago. 3 separate times during the visit. He looks at me and asks who I am. Not philosophically. Like literally, stranger danger. Who is this man in my house?
Mark, that's rough.
Kathy's there every week doing everything. I show up every couple of months drowning in guilt. And he doesn't know me. I'm his son. I exist because he exists. And to him, I'm nobody.
But that's the disease. That's not personal.
I know it's medical. Intellectually, I understand the neuroscience. But emotionally, it feels like I'm disappearing. If he can't remember me, did I even matter?
Okay, so that's what we're doing today.
We're doing a depressing episode.
We're doing an honest episode. Legacy anxiety, the fear of being forgotten, why we care so much, and whether any of it actually matters.
Just to be clear, in this relationship, you're the guy with the ancient history degree, and I'm the guy who watched 2 YouTube videos and has feelings.
You're the emotional support middle-aged man. Every podcast needs one.
And you're going to tell me about pharaohs building pyramids?
I am absolutely going to tell you about pharaohs. But first, what do you want to be remembered for?
I want my kids to remember I loved them. That even when I was stressed about work and bills, I tried to be there. That's it.
That's all?
What do you mean that's all? That's huge.
I'm asking if that's enough. You don't want recognition for your work, your achievements?
Sure, it'd be nice. But I'm one name in a credit scroll nobody reads. My kids should remember me. That feels achievable.
Okay, but people have been trying to achieve that for thousands of years, being remembered, and the ones who tried the hardest usually failed.
Here it comes. Ramses.
How did you know?
Because you bring up Ramses II in every conversation about legacy. I've known you for 20 years. You're very predictable.
I'm thorough. Ramses II ruled Egypt 66 years, around 1200 BC. Absolutely obsessed with being remembered. Built more monuments than any pharaoh in history.
How many monuments?
Dozens. Abu Simbel, the Ramesseum, statues taller than buildings, put his name on everything. Even monuments other pharaohs built had over 200 children.
200 children on a pharaoh's salary. Meanwhile, I have 2 kids and I'm drowning in college costs.
Different problem.
Same anxiety. Ramses builds pyramids. I fund Caroline's liberal arts education. Both are monuments to parental stress.
That's actually a fair comparison. But here's the thing. For 3,000 years, nobody knew who Ramses was. His temples got buried. His name unreadable. 1800s. Archaeologists finally figured it out.
But we do remember him now.
We remember he might have been the pharaoh in Exodus. The villain who wouldn't let the Israelites go. Maybe. We're not even sure. So his legacy is potentially being the bad guy in someone else's story.
Okay, but wait. Let me push back. We do remember Ramses. He's in every textbook, every museum. Aren't you underplaying his success here?
That's fair. We remember he existed, but not the way he wanted. He wanted to be remembered as the greatest pharaoh who ever lived. We remember him as maybe the Exodus guy.
Still remembered, though.
Still remembered. But you can't control how you're remembered. That's the problem.
What about Shakespeare?
Shakespeare?
Shakespeare controlled his legacy. He wrote in his sonnets about making people immortal through poetry. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. And it worked. We still read him.
That's actually a great point. I'm annoyed you thought of it first.
Finally, a win.
All right, yes, Shakespeare's the exception. One of the greatest writers in human history. For the other 99.99% of us, That's not a realistic model.
Fair enough.
Let me tell you about Alexander the Great, ultimate legacy anxiety case study.
Hit me.
Conquered most of the known world by 30. Egypt, Persia, parts of India, massive empire, died at 32, and one of his last thoughts was being forgotten.
He was worried about being forgotten?
Terrified. He'd spent his entire adult life conquering, building this empire. On his deathbed, realised it would collapse without him, which it did. His generals divided everything within years.
But we remember him.
We remember him as a conqueror, a military genius, not as the visionary uniter he thought he was. So even when you succeed at being remembered, you might fail at being remembered correctly.
This is very encouraging.
It's realistic. And the Romans understood this. They had these ceremonies called triumphs.
Big parades when generals won battles.
So even our own memories of our lives are unreliable.
Incredibly unreliable. Which means not only will other people forget us, we can't even trust our own memories of ourselves.
This is existentially horrifying.
It is, and it makes the whole legacy question even more complicated. If we can't reliably remember our own lives, how can we expect anyone else to remember us accurately?
This connects to something I wanted to talk about, Socrates.
Hemlock guy.
Here's what's interesting. Socrates never wrote anything down. Everything we know about him comes from other people writing about him, mostly Plato, and scholars debate whether the Socrates in Plato's dialogues is the real Socrates or Plato's idealized version.
So we don't actually know who Socrates was?
We know someone named Socrates existed, philosopher, executed. But his personality, actual teachings, real beliefs, we only know Plato's version.
So his legacy is someone else's interpretation of him.
Exactly. And this is true for most historical figures. We don't know them as they actually were. We know them as stories, as later interpretations.
But Socrates was fine with that. He chose not to write.
He believed in dialogue, in live conversation. Thought writing killed the dynamic nature of philosophy. So he deliberately chose not to create a written legacy.
And yet he has a legacy.
He has a legacy because Plato chose to write about him. But it's not his legacy. It's Plato's legacy of Socrates.
My head hurts.
Mine too. But here's the question. Is it better to try controlling your legacy and probably fail, or not try at all and let others decide how you're remembered?
I don't think there's a good answer to that.
There isn't a good answer. But I think Socrates had the right instinct about something. He focused on the conversation he was having right now, not on how future generations would remember the conversation.
Be present.
Be present. Most overused advice in modern self-help. But it's overused because it's actually true.
Okay, but I have a real world problem with being present. I was present for thousands of moments with my dad. Conversations, dinners, trips, all of it. And now he doesn't remember any of it. So what was the point of being present if he's not going to remember?
The point was the experience itself.
That's easy to say.
It's easy to say and hard to believe. But think about it this way. You remember those moments. Even if he doesn't, you were shaped by those experiences. They mattered to you. That has value independent of whether he remembers.
But it feels like it should be mutual. I remember, he remembers, we share the memory.
In a perfect world, yes, but we don't live in a perfect world. We live in a world where memory fades and people get sick and relationships are asymmetrical.
So what do I do with that?
I think you call him anyway. Even if he doesn't remember who you are, because the calling matters, the showing up matters, even if he can't remember it 5 minutes later.
That feels futile.
It might be futile in terms of creating lasting memory, but it's not futile in terms of being a decent human being. You're not calling him so he'll remember you called. You're calling because he's your dad and he's alive right now and you still can.
That's different than legacy.
That's completely different than legacy. Legacy is about the future. This is about right now. Marcus Aurelius, Roman Emperor, Stoic philosopher, wrote Meditations.
I tried reading it, got through 20 pages before I gave up and watched Netflix instead.
20 pages more than most people. Here's what's interesting. He was emperor, one of the most powerful men in the world, and he was obsessed with the idea that he'd be forgotten.
An emperor thought he'd be forgotten?
He wrote constantly about death and mortality and being forgotten. One of his most famous lines is, "Soon you'll be ashes or bones, a mere name at most, and even that is just sound and echo."
That's cheerful.
The man was depressed, but also clear-eyed. He recognised that even being emperor didn't guarantee immortality. Even power doesn't protect you from being forgotten.
But we remember him.
We remember him because he wrote Meditations, which he never intended anyone to read. It was his private journal. just thoughts for himself about how to live a good life. And it survived, and now it's one of the most influential philosophy books ever written.
So his private thoughts became his public legacy.
The thing he built for himself, not for legacy, became his greatest legacy. Meanwhile, all his achievements as emperor...
What did he do as emperor?
Exactly. You prove my point. Ruled 19 years, fought wars, made policy. We don't remember any of it. We remember his journal.
Did thinking about death all the time help him?
According to Stoicism, yes. The whole point is focusing on what you can control and letting go of what you can't. You can control your actions today, can't control whether people remember you tomorrow.
Easier said than done.
Much harder to do because we're human and we have egos and we want recognition. But I think the practice of trying to let go, even if you fail, that has value.
How does the practice have value?
Because every minute you spend worrying about legacy is a minute you're not spending actually living. And if the point is to live a good life, then worrying about whether people will remember that life is counterproductive.
And here's where I want to bring in some modern data. Because I'm a millennial and I solve my existential anxiety with research.
What did you find?
Average American takes 93 photos per week, almost 5,000 per year. And 72% of people never look at most of them. They just accumulate.
So we're compulsively documenting our lives and then ignoring the documentation.
Creating massive archives nobody will ever view. Like building pyramids and then never visiting them. Actually, that's not fair to pyramids. At least pyramids are impressive. Our phone galleries are just sad.
That's unsettling.
Gets worse. People spend an average of 12 minutes per day organising and posting photos on social media. 84 minutes per week. 73 hours per year. 3 full days of our lives spent curating our digital presence.
For what purpose?
Theoretically, to preserve memories and stay connected. In practice, performing our lives for an audience that's mostly not paying attention.
How do you know they're not paying attention?
Because the average person scrolls past a social media post in 1.7 seconds. 1.7 seconds. You spend 10 minutes choosing the perfect photo, writing the perfect caption, and people spend less than 2 seconds looking at it.
That's bleak.
It's incredibly bleak. And here's why it connects to legacy. We think we're creating a record of our lives. We think future generations will look back at our Instagram and know who we were. But MySpace launched in 2003. Was huge. Now it's basically dead. All those profiles, all that content, mostly lost or abandoned.
So digital legacy has a shelf life of maybe 20 years?
At best. If the platform doesn't change policies, get bought out, go bankrupt, or delete old content to save server space.
We're building monuments on quicksand.
Building monuments on quicksand we don't own on platforms run by corporations that don't care whether we're remembered. At least Ramses owned the desert.
At least Ramses owned the desert. That's actually a great line.
I have my moments, usually around 3 a.m. when I can't sleep, because I'm thinking about mortality.
Let me tell you about someone who did good work without recognition. Gregor Mendel.
Who?
Austrian monk, 1800s. Bred pea plants in a monastery garden, spent years documenting patterns of inheritance, published his findings. Nobody cared.
This is going to be sad, isn't it?
He died thinking his life's work was meaningless, complete failure, wasted years. And then 35 years after he died, scientists rediscovered his research and realized he'd discovered the fundamental laws of genetics. He's now called the father of modern genetics.
But he never knew.
Never knew. Died thinking he'd wasted his life. His legacy happened without him. He contributed to human knowledge, but didn't get the satisfaction of knowing he'd contributed.
That's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking. But it's also the reality for most people who contribute to human knowledge. They do the work. Maybe it gets recognised, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it gets recognised long after they're dead. Can't control the outcome.
So you can't do it for recognition.
You have to do it because the work itself matters to you. Because contributing to human knowledge or making art or helping people has value independent of whether you get credit for it.
That's a very high bar.
It is a very high bar. And most people can't meet it. Most people need recognition, need feedback, need to know their work matters. And that's okay. That's human.
So what's the middle ground?
I think the middle ground is doing work that matters to you and trying to let go of the outcome. Trying to contribute something valuable, but not being attached to whether you get recognized for it. Not being successful at letting go, but practicing it.
That sounds like Buddhism.
It's absolutely Buddhism. It's also Stoicism. It's most wisdom traditions. They all basically say the same thing. Do good work. Don't be attached to the fruits of your labor.
Which is impossible for humans with egos.
Incredibly difficult for humans with egos. But I think the practice of trying to let go has value, even if you never fully succeed.
Here's a statistic that's been bothering me. Average person is forgotten within 3 generations.
3 generations?
Think about your great-great-grandparents. Do you know their names?
I know one of them. Maybe 2.
Same. I know almost nothing about my great-great-grandparents. Maybe a name, maybe where they lived, but who they were as people, what they cared about, what they struggled with, gone, completely forgotten.
So within 100 years, we're forgotten.
Within 100 years, we're forgotten by our own families, let alone the wider world. And that's if we have families, if we have kids who have kids. If we don't, we might be forgotten even faster.
This is depressing.
It's realistic. And here's what really gets me. We spend so much time worrying about being remembered, building careers, achieving things, creating legacies. And the reality is within a century, nobody's going to remember any of it.
Unless you're exceptional.
Unless you're Shakespeare or Einstein or someone at that level. And the odds of being at that level are basically 0. For normal people, legacy is 100 years maximum. And that's being generous.
Okay, but let me offer a different perspective. Maybe 100 years is enough.
How is 100 years enough?
Because 100 years means you impacted your children, your grandchildren, maybe your great-grandchildren. You shaped the lives of people who actually knew you, and they'll carry forward something of who you were, even if they don't remember the specific details.
Like what?
Like values, like mannerisms, like family stories that get passed down, even if they get distorted over time.
But those aren't you. Those are just echoes.
Those are echoes. But maybe echoes are all we get. Maybe the goal isn't to be preserved perfectly for all time. Maybe the goal is just to create some good echoes that ripple forward for a few generations.
That's a very modest definition of legacy.
It is a very modest definition, but it might be the most honest one, because the alternative is lying to ourselves about creating some grand eternal legacy that we're almost certainly not going to create.
I'm still not comfortable with this.
Neither am I. But I think the discomfort is the point. We're supposed to be uncomfortable with mortality. We're supposed to want to be remembered. That's human. But maybe we can sit with that discomfort instead of letting it drive all our decisions.
How do you sit with discomfort?
You acknowledge it. You feel it. You don't try to fix it or solve it or make it go away. You just let it be there, which sounds like new age nonsense, but is actually quite difficult.
Very difficult.
Okay, but let me push back on something you said earlier. You said focusing on the present instead of legacy might be selfish.
I did say that, and I meant it.
Why did you mean it?
Because if nobody tries to preserve anything, if nobody tries to create legacy, we lose history, we lose culture, we lose the accumulated knowledge of civilization.
That's actually a really good point.
Thank you. I occasionally have those.
No, seriously. Because there's a difference between individual legacy and cultural legacy. Individual legacy is about you being remembered. Cultural legacy is about preserving knowledge and art and ideas for future generations.
And those don't have to be the same thing.
They don't have to be the same thing. You can contribute to cultural legacy without needing your name attached to it. That's what most scientists and scholars do. They add to the body of knowledge without expecting personal immortality.
Okay, I need to bring in something that's been on my mind. And I'm sure you'll have thoughts.
What is it?
Our Town, the play. Thornton Wilder, 1938.
I didn't know you were into theatre.
Ronald made me watch his college production twice. Once was the actual show, second time was because I fell asleep during the first one and he was hurt. But it stuck with me, especially now with my dad.
What about it?
So the whole play is about ordinary life in a small town. Grover's Corners, New Hampshire, nothing remarkable happens. People are born, grow up, get married, die. Normal life. And in the third act, the main character, Emily, dies in childbirth.
This is cheerful?
Wait. So she dies, and she's given the chance to go back and relive one day of her life, any day. And everyone tells her not to do it, but she insists. She picks her 12th birthday, just an ordinary Tuesday.
What happens?
She goes back and watches her younger self, her mother making breakfast, her father reading the paper, all these small ordinary moments, and she realises nobody's actually present for their own lives. They're all rushing through it, not seeing each other, not appreciating it while it's happening.
And she can't warn them.
She can't warn them because she's a ghost. She's watching and she's desperate for them to just stop and look at each other, really see each other. And they don't. They can't. They're too busy living to notice they're alive. And Emily breaks down. She says, do any human beings ever realize life while they live it? Every minute?
What's the answer?
The stage manager says no. Saints and poets, maybe. But everyone else? No. We don't realize life while we're living it.
That's devastating.
It's devastating. But here's why it connects to everything we've been talking about. Emily's not asking to be remembered. She's not building monuments or taking photos or creating some legacy. She just wants them to be present, to actually see each other while they still can, to know that these ordinary moments matter.
The coffee and breakfast matter.
The coffee and breakfast matter more than all the monuments because they're real, they're happening, and they'll never happen again exactly that way. Her mother will never make breakfast for 12-year-old Emily again. That moment's gone, and nobody noticed it while it was there.
So what's the answer? How do we notice?
I don't think there is an answer. I think that's the point. We can't be present for every moment. We're human. We're distracted. We're worried about bills and work and whether our kids are going to be okay. But maybe knowing we're missing it, being aware that we're not present, maybe that's as close as we get.
That's not very satisfying.
It's not satisfying at all, but it's honest. And you know what hit me when I watched Ronald in that play? He was playing the stage manager, the narrator who sees everything. And I realised I'd spent the whole first act on my phone, checking email, half watching my own son perform, missing it while it was happening, just like Emily's family.
Did you watch the second time?
Second time I put my phone away, watched the whole thing, and I cried like a baby during Act 3. Valerie had to drive home because I was a mess.
What made you cry?
Because Emily's not talking about some grand, meaningful life. She's not talking about achievements or legacy or being remembered. She's talking about her mum and her sunflowers and the smell of coffee. Ordinary life. And that's what we're losing by being so obsessed with. We're losing the ordinary moments that are actually what makes life worth living.
But those are the moments we forget first.
Exactly. Those are the moments we forget first because they seem insignificant. But they're not insignificant. They're everything. They're the whole point.
So what do we do with that?
I think we try. We try to notice. We try to be present. We fail most of the time, but we keep trying. And maybe that's the best we can do. Not building monuments, not creating legacies, just trying to actually see the people we love while they're still here to be seen.
Let me tell you about Diogenes.
Barrel guy.
You know, Diogenes?
I know he lived in a barrel and told Alexander the Great to move out of his sunlight. That's my entire Diogenes knowledge.
That's actually the most important part. Greek cynic philosopher. Rejected everything. Wealth, power, social conventions. Lived in a barrel in the marketplace.
Why would anyone do that?
Because he thought civilization was corrupt and the only way to be free was to need nothing. So he owned nothing, wanted nothing, lived completely according to his principles.
And Alexander the Great visited him?
Alexander the Great, the most powerful man in the world, came to visit Diogenes. And he said, I'm Alexander the Great, I can give you anything you want. What do you want?
And Diogenes said, move, you're blocking my sunlight.
Exactly. The ultimate rejection of power and legacy and achievement. Alexander could offer him the entire world, and Diogenes just wanted him to move.
That's the most badass thing I've ever heard.
It's incredibly badass. And here's the irony. Diogenes didn't care about being remembered. He didn't build monuments. He didn't write books. He just lived according to his values. And we remember him 2,400 years later specifically because he didn't care about being remembered.
So not caring about legacy created a legacy.
Not caring about legacy created a legacy. Meanwhile, Alexander the Great spent his whole life trying to be remembered and died at 32 worried he'd be forgotten.
But they both remembered.
They're both remembered. But Diogenes is remembered for being authentic, for living by his principles, for telling the most powerful man in the world to get out of his light. Alexander is remembered for conquering, which is impressive but not necessarily admirable.
Okay, but I can't live in a barrel. I have a mortgage. And Valerie would divorce me.
You absolutely cannot live in a barrel. Neither can I. Monica would have me committed. We have families, mortgages, responsibilities. We can't reject civilization. We're embedded in it.
So what's the modern equivalent of Diogenes?
I think the modern equivalent is trying to care less about how we're perceived and more about whether we're living according to our values. Not completely rejecting society, but being more intentional about what we care about.
That's still vague.
Let me make it specific. For me, it means spending less time documenting Dylan's childhood on my phone and more time actually being present for it. It means calling my mum in Sydney more often, even though I always forget. It means doing work I actually care about instead of just chasing promotions and titles.
For me, it means calling my dad even when he doesn't remember who I am. It means being less stressed and anxious around my kids. It means letting go of the need to have everything documented and perfect and controlled.
So we're both trying to do the same thing in different ways. Be more present, care less about legacy, focus on living well instead of being remembered well.
Are we succeeding?
Absolutely not. But I think trying matters.
Even if we fail?
Especially if we fail. Because the trying is the point. The effort to be better, to be more present, to care less about recognition and more about actually living, that has value even if we never fully get there.
You know what's funny? This whole episode has been us trying to figure out if legacy matters.
And what's your conclusion?
I think legacy matters less than we think it does, and being present matters way more than we give it credit for. Like Emily in our town realizing it too late.
I agree. And I think for people listening who are dealing with this anxiety about being forgotten, about whether their lives matter, that's maybe the takeaway.
Which is what?
That you probably won't be remembered. And that's okay, because the point isn't being remembered. The point is living in a way that feels meaningful to you right now. While you can actually seeing the people you love, actually tasting the coffee, actually being there for the ordinary moments.
While you still can.
While you still can. Because that's all any of us have. Right now, so we've covered ancient Egyptians building pyramids, Alexander the Great conquering the world, Marcus Aurelius writing private journals, Gregor Mendel breeding pea plants, Diogenes living in a barrel, Victorian death photography, modern social media memorials, medieval family lineage, and our town reminding us that ordinary life is what matters. All different responses to the same fear.
The fear of being forgotten.
The fear of being forgotten. And here's what we've learned. The people who tried the hardest to control their legacy often failed. And the people who just lived according to their values, who did meaningful work for its own sake, sometimes got remembered anyway, but most people still get forgotten.
Most people get forgotten.
Most people get forgotten. And I think we have to make peace with that. Because the fear of being forgotten is actually keeping us from living.
How so?
Because we're so worried about how our lives will be remembered that we're not present for our lives as they're happening. We're documenting instead of experiencing. We're performing instead of connecting. We're building digital monuments instead of actual relationships.
So stop documenting and start living.
Stop documenting so much and start living more. You don't have to give up documentation entirely, but maybe take fewer photos. Be more selective about what you share. Focus on the experience itself instead of proving to the world that the experience happened.
Easier said than done.
Much easier said than done, but worth trying. And here's the other thing. Call your aging parents, even if they don't remember who you are. Be present with your kids, even if they're on their phones the whole time. Do work that matters to you. Even if nobody ever recognizes it or gives you credit.
Because those things have value independent of whether anyone remembers them.
They matter in the moment, and the moment is actually all we have.
The moment is all we have. The past is gone. The future is uncertain, and our legacies are mostly out of our control. But right now, in this moment, we can choose how to live. We can choose to be present. We can choose to be kind. We can choose to do work that feels meaningful.
And maybe that's enough.
Maybe being decent human beings who showed up for the people we loved, maybe that's actually enough.
Not for everyone. Some people need grand legacies, need to achieve great things, need to be remembered by history. And that's fine. That's their path. But for most of us, just being decent, just showing up, just trying to live well, maybe that's enough.
I want to believe that.
So do I. And I think that's where we end up. Not with certainty, not with answers, but with the practice of trying to care less about being remembered and more about living well right now.
Living well right now.
Living well right now. Thanks for listening, everyone. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. Leave us a review. Tell us what you thought. Tell us what topics you want us to tackle next.
And remember, you probably won't be remembered.
You probably won't be remembered, but you're here now. And that counts for something.
See you next week.
See you next week.
Wait, before we go, I need to tell you one more thing.
We're at 61 minutes.
I know, but this matters. I called my dad yesterday after we planned this episode.
How'd it go?
He didn't know who I was. Asked me 3 times if I was the plumber. Then asked if I was selling something.
Mark.
But here's the thing. I didn't try to make him remember. I didn't get frustrated. I just talked to him, told him about my day, about Jackson applying to grad schools, about Ronald finally getting an interview for a real job.
That's good.
I told him about this podcast episode, about legacy and being forgotten and our town, and I don't think he understood what I was talking about, but he seemed happy. He smiled. He laughed at a joke I made about the weather.
That's really good.
He won't remember the conversation. Tomorrow he won't know it happened, but it happened. And I think that matters. Like Emily watching her 12th birthday, the moment existed, even if nobody remembers it. It was real.
It absolutely matters.
So that's my answer to the whole legacy question. I can't make him remember me. I can't make my kids remember everything I've done for them. I can't control how anyone remembers me or if they remember me at all. But I can show up. I can be there. I can try to be present for the ordinary moments while they're happening.
That's all any of us can do.
What about you with Dylan and the college tours and the phone filming?
I'm going to take fewer photos, be more present, stop trying to create these perfect documented moments and just be in the moments as they happen, even if they're imperfect, even if there's no record of them. Just actually see my son while he's still here to be seen.
Think it'll work?
Probably not. I'll probably still take too many photos and stress too much about whether he's appreciating these experiences, but I'm going to try.
That's all we can do. Try
and fail and try again. That's being human.
All right. Now we're actually done. Legacy anxiety, the fear of being forgotten, why we care so much about it, and what, if anything, we can do about it. Which is nothing and everything at the same time.
Can't control whether we're remembered. Can control whether we show up.
Can't control how people remember us. Can control how we treat them right now.
Can't control the future. Can control this moment, this ordinary, unremarkable, absolutely essential moment.
All right. For real this time. We're done.
We're done. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Unless we're forgotten by then.
Too soon.
Still too soon.
See you next time, everyone.